Hi everyone. Today is day 23 of Epilepsy Awareness Month, and I wanted to continue the story, Alex's story. I had mentioned in the last video, we kind of got up to roughly a little bit into this year. We've been dealing with the breath holding issue, a lot of seizure jolt activity and unusual behavior happening around that, some regression. And that brings us up to right before COVID kind of hit the fan. She had an acute onset of myoclonic seizures. Myoclonic seizures are one of those seizures that are really easy to miss. It could be as simple as just like that. Looks like a twitch. And it's a jerk. They can be called myoclonic jerks. You honestly wouldn't have even noticed it unless you were holding her. And I was holding onto her and noticed every few seconds just this little jump, little jump, little jump. They seem harmless, but I'm here to tell you, remind you, tell you, educate you if you don't know. Those little jerks, those subtle little seizures are no less dangerous. It's what's happening in here. It's what's happening subclinically, meaning what we don't see versus what we do see. And we tried to give her one of her rescue meds to stop it after it had gone on for a while, and we couldn't stop it. So we ended up in the emergency room at Children's Hospital. They said that was the best way to bring her in, was through the emergency room. And that was the beginning of a few days at Children's Hospital that was not a good experience. It was a really rough few days. We were in the ER for 8 hours, and I was fighting to get her up to the 6th floor for neurology to do an EEG. They don't keep EEGs in most ERs, so it wasn't as simple as them just rolling one into the ER and hooking her up. And this is one of those examples of really having to advocate, because here we are with all these doctors and people that don't know our daughter. They're not in charge of her regular care. They don't know what's typical for her and not typical for her. And so it felt like an 8-hour battle. Them continuing to send people in, well, let's just give her rescue meds. Let's just give her a whole lot of scary, terrifying drugs. And if it stops the seizures, we know that's what it is and you can go home. So you want to pump my child full of all these terrifying drugs, which even if you got her on an EEG after that, you wouldn't know what was happening before the drugs. I fought. I talked to multiple nurses, multiple doctors, and I basically had to say, I'm not leaving this ER. You will be taking my daughter to the 6th floor for an EEG. That is what you have to do as a warrior mom. Sometimes you just have to put your foot down and say, this is going to happen the way I'm saying it's going to happen. And you've got to have that. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I have a strong personality, so I don't really have a problem, putting my foot down when I need to, but it's a crazy situation. And I had to put my foot down and I had to say, this is happening. And thank God I did, because what they saw in that EEG was a hot mess. And it was things they needed to see. They needed to understand what was going on so that we knew what kind of rescue meds were going to be ideal for her and how the rest of the night was going to transpire. And let me tell you, rescue meds, they're no joke. And sometimes they're worse than the seizures. We'd never had to do this kind of emergency room, hospital, rescue med approach with her before. But what they saw in the EEG is that she was seizing constantly inside of her brain. We were just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Thus came the rescue meds. Anyone who's watching this, who's been in this position, knows rescue meds are not, yay, seizures have stopped, all is well. Alex did not have a good response to some of these meds. They were meds that she had never had in her body before. She was hyperactive, agitated, wouldn't sleep, even completely drugged to the point where she could barely hold her own head up. She wouldn't lay down. She kept sitting up, and she's in a large crib at the hospital because she can't be in a regular bed. And so she'd sit up, and then she'd bonk her head into the side of the crib because she couldn't hold her head up and sit there, but then she would refuse to lay down. It was a brutal night. It was rough. I was pretty upset about the degree of the rescue meds and some of the extra layers of the meds they did that they didn't really explain the repercussions of. And then the next day, they wanted to send her home like that. She'd had no sleep. She was vomiting. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't drink. And we actually had a neurologist who said he thought that she'd be better off at home. Truly, it was the only horrible experience we've ever had at Children's Hospital. It was awful. And again, I had to fight to get her to stay another day. I'm like, I'm not taking my daughter home until she's eating and drinking and coherent and not acting like this. It was scary. And yes, did we stop the myoclonic seizures? Yes. But the state that it left her in, any kid, any adult that you give that dose of rescue meds to, then you're dealing with a whole aftermath that's not even about the seizures. It was awful. It was an absolute awful stay. We were there for a few days. We came out with a new medication that they wanted us to try called Banzel. That got added to her already, the levetiracetam, which is the generic of Keppra that she's been on for a while. And at least for a minute, it seemed to control the myoclonic seizures a little bit. But there was a rough stay. And it was the beginning of the next couple of months of trying to figure out what was going on. We knew there had been a lot of talk of an LGS, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. It is in her third diagnosis that's rare for epilepsy. We knew that was coming, and that was going to be the next step, and that'll be the next step I share in our journey, is wrapping our heads around a new diagnosis that was to come a couple months after this horrible acute onset of myoclonic seizures, this incredibly difficult hospital stay, and the aftermath of what it did to Alex. It takes a minute. They don't just bounce right back. So anyway, that's one of the hard parts of the story that, even when I think about it, just makes my heart sink. And that was just several months ago. So that's the part of the story I'm sharing today, and I will continue. We have a week left, everybody. 1 week. Please, if you're planning on making a donation, please don't procrastinate. Please just make it. Just get it done while it's in your head, while you're thinking about it. Click the link. If you're interested in the soap and the bracelets that I posted on the 19th that my mom's made for Epilepsy Awareness and to help encourage donations, please just PM me, let me know if you make a donation, if you want the soap or the bracelets. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody has some good downtime planned for the Thanksgiving week ahead. I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.